Dr. Reuben Reed in the late 90s stumbled upon a secret mechanism in the human genome and named it autophagy. He chose this name because it bears similarities to autophagy but has alarming consequences. The evolved autophagy can potentially lead to human extinction by turning individuals into zombies. According to research, the estimated year of the first population being affected by autophagy is around 2160, with a margin of error of plus or minus 12 years. It was discovered that the process could be hastened if an individual gets infected with a virus that manipulates the DNA, causing it to reach the critical zero clock stage. The initial case observed was with the Kuru disease in Papua New Guinea, a neurological condition prevalent among local tribes due to the practice of cannibalism. Throughout the narrative, Kuru has been emphasized as a prion disease linked to an actual geographical location and its associated real-world brain-altering fatal illness. It is distinct from a virus, characterized by misfolded proteins catalyzing the misfolding of other proteins, resulting in clumping and cell function disruption, especially in neurons of the central nervous system affecting behavior. Prions have no genetic material and cannot combine with viruses due to their inability to mutate, but instead cause proteins to misfold similarly, propagating the misconfiguration process. Kuru is a form of Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease (CJD), transmitted not through bites like zombies, but requiring ingestion of infected brain or spinal cord tissue, similar to the method of transmission in mad cow disease. To rationalize the zombie bite transmission concept, a blend of stage 2 Kuru and stage 2 HIV strains that can be transmitted through blood not just by consuming brains was proposed. The consortium were the masterminds behind this idea, an organization comprising various secretive global conspiracy groups with connections to governments, law enforcement, and covert agents within public global organizations. The consortium, led by Eschaton, aimed to facilitate Reed's autophagy research after Dr. Chase Barrister, Karen Swatter and Geopharm co-founder, discovered the Hewitt-Kahn enzyme accelerator HKEA capable of indirectly speeding up the autophagy clock to reach zero. However, as one of the associates of the consortium, Palm Garden Order had a different perspective on the cure development project. Representing Reed, Eschaton was determined to study the autophagy trigger, Kuru, and HKEA through any means necessary in order to create a cure and save humanity. However, Palm Garden Order had a profit-driven motive and intended to weaponize the autophagy trigger as a bioweapon by any means necessary. Unfortunately, even the consortium seemed to lean towards agreeing the Palm Garden Order, which meant they were considering the weaponization idea while still pursuing Eschaton's original vision of finding a cure. This selfish alternate vision drove both the consortium and Palm Garden Order to extreme measures, leading them to forcefully take over Geopharm and engage in cruel practices. To further their corrupt agenda, they manipulated Emory Crown, the son of Geopharm's founder, into conducting HKEA tests without his father's knowledge, resulting in the death of a human subject. Upon learning of this tragic news, Ronald Crown immediately ordered a halt to all HK-related tests until the situation could be brought under control. However, Emory was dissatisfied with his father's decision and resorted to using force to ensure the tests continued. He went on to kill his own father along with co-founder Chase and ultimately tortured Chase's wife to death. In this heinous act, Emory became the new CEO and completely altered the company's original mission of curing Kuru with HKEA. Instead, he aimed to create a profitable bioweapon by combining stage 2 Kuru with stage 2 HIV and augmenting it with the Hewitt-Kahn enzyme accelerator, which later was named Pathogen HK. Emory's successful assistance in creating the base virus for the consortium led to the next step, testing the virus to develop a vaccine. In short, the virus was tested in the same lab on Narapela but unfortunately failed, resulting in Emory's death and no cure being created. Despite this setback, the consortium decided to persevere with what they had and chose to test the virus on the largest island on the archipelago, Banoi. They believed that this location were ideal for testing and observing the effects of the disease, mutations, and any weaponized version they developed. The isolated nature of the island made it easier to contain and control the outbreaks, minimizing the economic consequences of death and destruction. Additionally, Narabella outbreaks provided valuable data on how the disease and mutagens function when exposed to a population, allowing the consortium to perfect a bioweapon with the potential for immense profitability. However, for the virus to be a viable biological weapon for military organizations, a vaccine needed to be developed. Through their continued experiments, the organization eventually discovered that individuals with type O negative blood appeared to be somewhat immune to the virus. This revelation suggested that their blood could hold the key to developing a vaccine. The consortium devised a strategy to attract a small group of individuals to Benoi Island. They utilized their vast resources to scan global blood records and organize a multinational blood drive, expanding their search for suitable candidates. Through various means of communication, they extended invitations to these individuals, ultimately identifying 9 individuals who possessed the desired blood type, resilient immune systems, and met the necessary demographic criteria of youth, good health, and physical fitness. These qualities increased their chance of combating the infected and following the path set by the consortium and their agents, Karen, who were responsible for guiding them to the consortium's laboratories. The chosen individuals were enticed to the island with invitations to a 2-week vacation at the resort free of charge under the pretense of having entered a random drawing during the blood drive. As the selected individuals made their way to Benoi Island, the consortium deployed their agents across the archipelago to ensure the smooth execution of their plans. The consortium engaged in negotiations with the unethical manager of the resort, Kenneth Ballard, who frequently utilized the hotel as a cover for criminal activities to help bring the immune individuals to his establishment, as he possessed sensitive information about some of them. By enlisting the services of Captain Karen Barrister, a notorious hacker imprisoned in a high-security facility near the island, and Dr. Robert West, a scientist at Geopharm's secluded laboratory in Benoit's dense jungles, the organization tasked them with collaborating on developing an initial version of a weaponized virus mutagen and attracting the immune to the lab to extract their blood for a potential vaccine. Unbeknownst to the consortium, Karen harbored his own agenda of creating solely the weaponized virus without any intention of producing a corresponding vaccine. Indifferent to the idea of developing a cure, Karen aimed to unleash the virus globally as a form of retribution against the organization, particularly the Palm Garden Order, for their avarice and involvement in his parents' demise, as well as their cruel experiments, partly to serve as a warning for his defiance towards their schemes. As per instructions, Karen successfully persuaded the immunes to seek out Dr. Robert West in order to commence the development of the mutagen and a potential cure, all while posing as Colonel Ryder White. Ultimately, the mutagen was successfully created. However, once West began working on the vaccine, Karen revealed his true intention by releasing the caged infected individuals to eliminate West and the remaining scientists, thereby halting the progress of the cure. Consequently, the Benoi project only managed to gather a regular teenager named Jean, the 4 remaining immunes, a syringe containing mutagen, and an asymptomatic carrier and patient 0 named Yerema, who also harbored a potent mutagen. Unfortunately, no vaccine was produced. Karen then deceived these 6 individuals, promising them evacuation via helicopter with the requirement of traveling to the prison island with the assistance of a local criminal named Moen. However, unbeknownst to them, Karen redirected them to an elevator laced with sleep gas to prevent any attempt to seize the syringe. This tactic also prevented Ryder from revealing to the immunes about Karen's true identity as the one pulling the strings all along. Without wasting any time, Ryder swiftly grabbed the syringe and made his way to his wife's room, Emily, despite Karen's claims that she was already beyond saving due to Ryder's late arrival with the vaccine. He suspected that Karen had intentionally delayed him. Determined to protect his wife, Ryder locked Karen inside the control room and rushed towards Emily, escorting her to the waiting chopper on the prison's rooftop. However, his plans were thwarted when he was ambushed by not only the 6 individuals but also Karen, who had managed to escape the control room using a backup keycard. Karen had manipulated the others, convincing them to stop Ryder by falsely claiming that he intended to bomb the island after escaping with his wife and the cure. In a bold confrontation, Jean accused Ryder of finding it easier to kill strangers than someone they love.
I love you, Dad.
Jean then released Emily's restraints and immediately attacked Ryder, biting him. Filled with panic, Ryder killed his infected wife and unleashed his frustration upon Jean, shooting her twice until she was pushed back and fell from the rooftop. In a desperate attempt to prevent infection, Ryder injected himself with the syringe. However, unbeknownst to him, it was not a cure but a mutagen, causing him to transform into a super zombie. Upon observing the infected Ryder, the consortium identified significant potential in the resulting mutation. However, they also acknowledged the challenges in controlling the mutagen and were keen on conducting another test to further study and refine a weaponized version of the Kuru disease. Following the consortium's directives, Karen flew the chopper to the HMAS Avenger, a military patrol ship near Banoi, where civilian VIP Frank Serpo, a consortium operative, was stationed. Despite Lieutenant Colonel Samuel Hardy's command of the ship, Serpo's ties to the consortium allowed him to manipulate the colonel and his troops for their own purposes. Serpo opted to move the immune individuals to the lower decks for additional experiments and research. Meanwhile, Yerma was transferred to a separate facility for specialized testing, and Karen was reassigned to the consortium headquarters for debriefing on their next course of action. Although the organization began to have suspicions about Karen's ulterior motives, they were still willing to work with him due to his exceptional abilities that were vital in accomplishing their objectives. Prior to discovering more concrete information on the immune system and transferring them to a secure facility for vaccine development, a new outbreak occurred because of Yerma bit a soldier while being restrained, infecting him. A monsoon then caused the ship to lose control and crash near Pellanai Island. Serpo managed to evacuate from the ship in time and proceed with commanding a second test of the bioweapon on the island. The plan involved releasing the advanced pathogen HK with mutagen from Karen to locate more immune individuals quicker with a stronger virus. However, this led to the immunes becoming extremely aggressive in their previous state compared to when they were in Banoi. This was evident when Harlow, a WHO representative, was tested with another mutagen using the mutated pathogen HK virus. To avoid confusion, we'll be temporarily naming the viruses with labels in sequence. The base pathogen HK on Banoi, where the immunes are completely resistant. Then Yerma and the Shrin as pathogen HK level 2, similar to the one used in Pellanai outbreak, causing the immune's immunity become questionable. And finally, pathogen HK level 3, tested on Harlow, capable of completely stripping the immunity of the immune individuals if used excessively. That's why the previous immunes are using a minuscule dosage to assist in defeating the fully mutated Harlow. So for the second time, the consortium was unsuccessful in creating a vaccine. Instead, they ended up creating a stronger virus. After the planned outbreak in the Banoi archipelago, reports emerged that the crisis was subsiding and rescue operations were underway. However, rumors about the outbreaks were discredited and hidden, leaving the fate of Karen and the escaped immunes uncertain. The world remained unaware of the true reasons behind the devastating events on Banoi. Although the consortium failed to profit from their weaponized mutagens, it inadvertently helped Eschaton's research objectives. The consortium's efforts in the Banoi archipelago proved to be pointless as they were driven by personal gain. The aftermath of the crisis and the unanswered questions about the orchestrators remain hidden from the public eye. From this moment, Eschaton is focused on researching the infection caused by the consortium and the Palm Garden Order. They have a secret lab hidden under the re-aging clinic on Hollywood Boulevard. Reed in his research discovered that the pathogen viruses and mutation variants are actually triggering autophagy prematurely. This means that individuals who are immune to the premature autophagy mutation may eventually lose their immunity as the autophagy becomes fully triggered with stronger mutagen. Reed also found a unique anomaly in DNA, making this specific human actually immune to the autophagy, which he named Numens. This discovery drove Reed to search for an unborn baby named Tisha. However, he had to wait for the baby to mature before conducting tests. Reed plans to release a virus to collect these Numens, but the virus needs to be stronger to avoid collecting non-qualified immunes. He has advanced the last virus, pathogen HK level 3, into a stronger version called HK1 virus. This will ensure that previous immune individuals cannot handle the infection, allowing Reed to find better and more resistant immunes to the autophagy closer to the Numens he is seeking. This also explains how Sambi lost his immunity to the base HK1 virus, as he was only able to resist up to the last version of pathogen HK level 3. Reed, acting on behalf of Eschaton, released the virus in LA and had plans to seal off the entire region, turning it into a man-made island to contain the infection. Meanwhile, the CDC was under government control. However, Reed, being a secret agent for Eschaton and the sole person working on autophagy for a long time, had his own agenda that heavily influenced how the CDC operated. The CDC even had the same equipment developed at the pier and Reed's own lab on the Ocean Avenue, where they tested Noah, the first potential Numen, using a similar procedure as on Banoi and Palanai. They were looking for individuals immune to the base virus and tested them with the mutagen to determine their level of immunity. In Reed's lab on Ocean Avenue, Noah was tested with a stronger version of the HK1 virus, which again, to avoid confusion, will temporarily calling it HK1 virus level 2, resulting in failure as Noah lost his immunity and mutated into the strongest virus mutation, Mutator. Even the Slayers are almost losing their immunity after fighting Noah, which obviously exposing his HK1 virus level 2 to the Slayer. This also explains how Sam B lost his immunity even to the base HK1 virus, as he was only resistant under the last virus pathogen HK level 3 back on Palanai. However, with the help of the Slayers as new Numen candidates, Reed conducted another test that showed their blood was resistant to the HK1 virus and the mutagen that was tested on Noah, the HK1 virus level 2, as they were still able to control the autophagy eruption.
Your anomaly's the best.
This led Eschaton to grant Reed a new chopper to support his incredible findings. Reed immediately flew to the Eschaton secret lab on Hollywood Boulevard, disguised as a re-aging clinic, to test his cure creation using his daughter's modified genome and the blood of the Numen Slayers.
Not his head, you idiot!
It is assumed that this cure actually worked, as evidenced by Sam B being brought back to life and preventing the little Noah-like mutation. Sam B successfully escaped Los Angeles with his partner Emma, thanks to the assistance of Patton, a fan of Emma's, who provided them with transportation on Eschaton helicopter. Despite Reed's ability to develop a cure, Eschaton lost track of Tisha, the individual who possesses the cure. Essentially, Tisha suffered the same fate as Yerma, who was also intended to become the cure.
Don't be afraid. What are you doing? I just
Need a little
West?
more blood. If we can make a vaccine, We can save your people, save the island.
However, due to Karen's involvement, Yerma became a subject for the mutagen instead. If the consortium's plan had gone smoothly, Yerma would have been continuously harvested to produce a cure for the rest of her life, like Tisha.
To be harvested every day for the rest of her life.
This is how the story concludes in Dead Island 2. So there you have it. That's the story of Eschaton so far. If you have any questions or need further clarification on the plot, feel free to ask. Before I end this video, I need to address an error in my previous video based on new research. I previously mentioned that Reed had no knowledge of Banoi, but it turns out he was actually one of the masterminds behind the outbreak. However, it remains unclear how Conrad was involved with Reed and why they eventually went their separate ways. Should we discuss this in another video?
Oh shit, here we go again.
Let me know in the comments. This is Very Rust, and I'll see you down the line.
Later, Jimmy.
Why'd you let her go?
Hey, she ain't my kid.
Oh,
If I was in
Jimmy,
charge...
Listen. you
Yeah,
have
fucking
to find
whatever!
Tisha,